Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Alite, ex-gangster, enforcer, criminal that did 20 years in and out of prisons for violence. I want to discuss a subject. It's probably one of the hottest subjects in the history of this country. Law enforcement, police officers, the destruction of our communities, and the violence of people like Tyre Nichols that are being killed by rogue police officers. Tyre Nichols was a gentleman, hardworking, father of a 4-year-old son, a gentleman and a good guy, and a son to his mom. Somebody that didn't deserve that. Somebody that's not a gang member, not somebody that lived like me, not a George Floyd. Not to say George Floyd should have been killed either, but guys like myself and George Floyd, we've gotten beatings by police officers. They respond to us. They know who we are. They know we're violent, and they know we were criminals. They know we're dangerous. So there's somewhat of an excuse, even when it's wrong policing, and somebody like George Floyd gets killed. That's not the excuse, that killing of George Floyd. But there's a complete difference when they completely abuse the system, and somebody like Tyre Nichols, who's not a gangster, who's not a criminal, who's a hard-working man, gets killed and dragged out in the street in this country, in Tennessee, in America. This isn't a third world country where this should go on. The problem is most journalists and politicians do not understand what goes on in those streets like I do. When you have rhetoric by our politicians who must be accountable for what they're talking about in their actions, with defund the police and the attacks on our police officers that they instigated, they gaslit, and you have these repercussions of what's going on. That means, just like these police departments, these police officers have to be responsible for what their actions are, so do our politicians. Because the kids in our neighborhood, just like when you have a parent, mother and father, and they argue on how to reprimand a child and they separate them, kids know how to take advantage of that. I was one of those kids. I know exactly what's going on in those streets and why we have the attacks on our police officers. We have over 100 police officers that were shot and killed this year, about 70 ambushes, because there's a free-for-all on our police officers. At this point, it's hard to recruit them to come in because most Americans think it's okay to attack our police officers. They're throwing bottles at them, they're burning their cars, they're threatening them with violence on camera, and these police officers have their hands in their pocket. And by allowing this, it causes situations like this, out of frustration and bad policing. Two different things. The other is they're not sure if they're going to get killed, hurt, or attack themselves. We need our communities behind our police officers. We all live together. We have to work together. That also means better training, psychological training, physical training. And whoever's running those police departments, whoever the chief of police is, their leadership is very important because their police officer will behave like they do. These are some of the things that got to be discussed in our communities. But in no way, shape, or form should they be able to attack our police officers like this. Without our police officers, look what's going on around our countries, in major cities, Tennessee, Philadelphia, New York, LA. There's violence that is out of control, that people do not feel safe walking to the store. Defund the police is politicians and very wealthy people that are talking about that. Our neighbors, our communities, anybody I speak to does not agree with that forum. They want their parents safe. They want their children safe. And they know the only way they're safe is the police officers to be able to patrol our areas. So defund the police is rhetoric that came out of politicians' mouths. They cannot blame this locally solely on some rogue police officers. 98% of them do their job. They want to go home to their families, and they're good police officers. I'm pro-police. I want to make that straight. I understand the mentality of them because I was on the other side. I was one of those kids attacking them, arrogant with them, and I guess some of those situations I got hurt bad by them, I deserved it. Some of them, it was overzealous police officers. Some of them are attacking me out of fear because they knew I was a shooter. And this is some of the things that is not being taken into consideration with some of these cops. They're out there, they're being attacked, they're being abused, they're losing any kind of morale within their police department because of what's going on in these communities. We need to stand by our police officers, and they'll stand by us. And our politicians the same. Stop throwing them under the bus. Stop telling them what to go out there and go ticket everybody, go and act as if these police officers are doing this out of vengeance toward the communities. You're telling them to do those things, and then you're blaming them for doing those things. We need community to get together, not to separate. We need to say to ourselves, those young men that are putting that blue uniform on, we should be proud of them. They're the people that are saving lives. There's thousands and thousands of incidences every day that no one talks about where they're helping our communities. And you have a handful of rogue police, just like what happened to Tyre Nichols, that need swift justice against them. They've been arrested, they've been fired, and let the justice system work for them. But we also got to remember, do not help inflame these kids on the street to continue this attack on police officers, because you're going to get more and more violence on both sides. And at the same time, we can't get educated men that are coming in and registering or trying to become police officers around this country. So the more that we make it difficult to hire educated, level-headed men and women that want to become police officers because of the attacks on them, this is going to get even more difficult. Instead, we should be at community meetings and talking about how do we improve this. And why isn't our communities holding accountable for the kids that are attacking these police officers? I see it's come out every time there's a killing of a poor innocent kid, and justifiably. But why aren't you out in those droves when they're attacking our cops and ambushing our police officers? Where is the politicians when they're attacking our police officers? These are the questions that need to be asked in communities. Thank you, everybody. Please, I'll speak on this subject as we keep going.